Hey everybody, Xeno back here for another challenge. You read the title, so let's get straight into it. So, some quick stipulations for those that are new to this series. We'll be beating the game using only air shooter, and the game has been modified so that any bosses that were previously immune to the air shooter now take a single point of damage, otherwise the challenge is impossible. Air shooter also now has infinite ammo because otherwise we'll run out of it and the challenge won't be possible. So, I'm still going to get a bunch of comments about it anyways, but let's get started. Air shooter is actually quite well suited to take on Heatman stage. The prop tops and tellies in the earlier parts of the stage are very weak to it, and the sniper Joe mech at the end doesn't give you any trouble either because you can just remove it and then move on. Otherwise, the block puzzle is the same as usual. That doesn't change at all. Heatman also takes 2 damage from air shooter, which is pretty nice because it makes the fight a little less tedious than some of the other weapons that we've tested, where this just takes forever and is a complete slog. As usual, I don't know why people want to see this fight, but, you know, just for the sake of it, why not? Some properties of air shooter that we can talk about, I suppose, in the meanwhile, while we wait for Heatman to dash around and eventually die, is that the arcing shot aspect of it is fairly useful. It means that some bosses get multi-hit by it, which is going to be more relevant later. It also causes some bugginess if the tornadoes hit the enemies too close together, but we can talk about that at further length later as well. Let's cut to the next stage. Now, Woodman's stage here is actually very annoying because these monkings, as well as the hot dogs and most other enemies in this stage, are immune to the air shooter, including the rabbits as well. So this stage is honestly mostly a lot of damage tanking, which kind of sucks. Let me see if I can tank damage from the co-peepees instead. Yeah, that'll help save a bit of health, but unfortunately, most of this is just going to be an endurance test, trying to get to the boss gates before you die from lack of HP. You can jump over these rabbits, thankfully, as I just showed, but it's kind of tricky, very tight. I actually don't remember if the atomic chickens are immune to this thing, but I guess we're about to find out in a second. Interestingly, for all the struggle that air shooter causes with Woodman's stage, the boss himself is not one of those areas of struggle. Bizarrely enough, Woodman is actually weak to this thing, which might actually allow us to scrape through even with the amount of health that I have right now, but let's have a look. And also, for posterity's sake, have a look at the Crash Bomber video if you're wondering how the Woodman zip is achieved, because the hot dogs are also immune to, I believe, shield. Or air shooter. Oh, okay, awesome. You didn't see anything. I do find it very peculiar how Woodman is so weak to the air shooter, and Airman is quite weak to the leaf shield. There's a little bit of a tit-for-tat weakness kind of going on there. Either way, next stage. Air shooter is really good for Quickman stage. These janky makers don't stand a single chance against the air shooter, and neither do the mechs at the end of the stage, so we'll cut straight ahead. As I was mentioning earlier, the key to taking down these Sniper Joe mechs is to try and space yourself so that you're far enough away that the tornadoes hit each other at a kind of staggered rate. Otherwise, they'll all make contact at the same time and cause this weird glitchy state where the mech will flash, but nothing will actually happen. It won't take the full amount of damage from your tornado spread. Very bizarre, buggy behavior. Anyways, Quickman. He takes 2 damage from air shooter, so we have a decent advantage here. Sometimes you can even get a double hit, like you just saw. Yeah, that happens with him, as well as a Flashman, which we'll see pretty soon, but this one's not a difficult fight in this challenge, thankfully. The tornadoes also tend to hit him as he's jumping high up in the air, so not one of the struggle fights for this challenge. Next stage. Flashman has a stage. That's the most generous commentary I can offer at this point in this video series. Either way, Flashman himself, this is another interesting one. Sort of similar case to Quickman, except we are taking less damage here, but you can kind of double hit him with the air shooter pretty often, which is pretty neat actually. It doesn't always work, especially given the strange room layout. But you can decently often get him to jump from one tornado into the second, meaning that this fight isn't usually a big problem. Sometimes, I like how he just completely missed, by the way. Yeah. Oh, sometimes he'll corner you, though. Crap. Get away from me. But overall, this is never one of the more challenging fights, generally speaking, so Flashman down. Alright, let's quickly move on to the next stage. Predictably, Airman as a boss is going to be one of our biggest difficulties in this challenge. I was curious to see if the Kaminari Goros died in one hit to the air shooter because they probably have an unprogrammed damage value. And they do indeed. The second one is a bit of a problem because it approaches very horizontally, but if you damage boost so that you fall just back on the platform, you can get past it without too much of a sweat. Let's see if we can farm a little bit of health off these Pvs though. Maybe not. Yeah, they're being quite stingy. Either way, let's move ahead in the recording. Interestingly enough, the Fan Fiends actually have a coded immunity to air shooter, which I kind of wasn't expecting because they're not found in any other stage in the game. I'm not sure if this suggests that perhaps they were meant to be encountered elsewhere originally, but yeah, I was not expecting this. Kind of an interesting surprise, to tell the truth. Now let's try not to die right before the boss, but actually, I'm probably going to die anyways. Alright, now with full health, let's talk about Airman. He's going to be our biggest problem as usual. Normally immune to the air shooter as you would expect, doesn't heal from it interestingly enough, unlike the other elemental bosses in this game, but you also can't hit him very well with it in most cases, except when he does that. And then as usual, the kind of jumping phase is going to be your best opportunity to hit him. But, you know, good luck, of course. You can really only do like maybe 5 or 6 damage to him at a time, which just isn't really going to be enough to outpace his damage output without an E-tank. Okay, I couldn't pause there, but anyways. Yeah, undodgeable patterns suck. Water is wet and more news at 11. Either way, Airman's not too much of a difficulty as long as you have an E-tank, which we are able to carry plenty of. I think he's the only boss that really severely challenges you in terms of health in this challenge, because most of the other difficult ones take additional damage from air shooter, which is very useful. But we will be conserving our resources for him again in the refights and the other pain in the ass Wily bosses. Let's get to the next stage. Moles are not immune to the air shooter, but they do kind of suffer from this damage glitch issue if you fire from too close inside of them, which you can kind of see here. Yeah, sometimes the tornado just pass right through. But either way, not a big deal. Now, the Pyro bots, on the other hand, these are really annoying. Unfortunately, there's not anything you can do to stop the gear from moving in this game. Even if you kill the clown, the gear keeps moving by itself. You can do that, first of all, but you can also use the pause trick sometimes to alleviate the issues. Actually, hold on. It might be more efficient to get the gear like floating in the air in a glitchy state. Yeah, that's actually really funny. That is more efficient. Huh. Blockies are also immune to air shooter, so damage tanking time. Yeah, this is fun. Oh, I'm probably gonna die here, aren't I? Yeah, you need almost full health to get through this section because you literally cannot damage these blockies. That really sucks, actually. Well, we're gonna have to sacrifice another life to Metalman, I suppose, but that's not a big deal. Alright, once we've sacrificed a life to Metalman to get us back to full health, we can talk about this fight. Metalman actually makes himself very vulnerable to air shooter overall with his whole jumping shtick. I'm not sure if it's more valuable to try and do the back and forth thing, or if it's better to just shoot him at a distance. Let's see. Doesn't seem like it makes a huge difference overall. It's pretty difficult to get him to be hit twice by this thing. It looks like it can be done, though. Yeah, actually, the back and forth might be easier. Oh, yeah. Okay, wait. You can kind of double hit him. That's cool. Yeah. Okay, wait. There's a strategy forming here. Okay, yeah, I'll have to remember that for the refights, but it seems like you can kind of coax him into jumping into 2 of the tornadoes at the same time, which is interesting. Alright, next on the chopping block. Croakers, or Karogs, whatever you prefer to call them, are also immune to the air shooter. Remember the damage boosting strategies that we had to use for whichever of the previous weapons. I believe it was Leaf Shield. But you're going to need to do the same thing here. These Tanishis or Crabbots, interestingly, are also immune to it. Let me see if I can do that skip. Hold on. Almost every single enemy in this stage is immune to the air shooter, even including the Shrimp and the Anko. The Metroids are not, interestingly enough. Oh, and it looks like the Claws aren't either, which is nice, but it's not going to save us when we have maybe 7 health to work with at this point in the stage, so we're going to have to take another L against Bubbleman. Alright, let's talk Bubbleman. He's not, honestly, much to discuss as usual. Very exploitable pattern with this guy, and also the air shooter is pretty well equipped to hit him on his way up and down. You just gotta put a little bit of horizontal distance between yourself and him, but otherwise, he's fairly exploitable as usual. You can just kind of go back and forth like this. Yeah, there we go. Yes, once in a while you can get a little double hit on him when he's rising, but otherwise you're going to just be doing this back and forth little 1 damage loops. There you go. Alright, last but not least, Crashman. This is actually how I'm learning that Mets are immune to air shooter, which is pretty damn annoying, but thankfully Tellys are not, so the rest of this is mostly just a tedious slog, which I am not going to bother wasting your time with. Unfortunately, this blocky is another forced damage moment, and you're going to have to get a little creative when it comes to dodging this Met. Interesting how it ran to the left there. Either way. As usual, remember to face left when you're making this climb. It'll make the PP drop its egg harmlessly on the right side. Don't bother trying to shoot at it, because that'll actually reset your position to being facing towards the right, which will screw you up, funnily enough. We've mostly unintentionally saved the easiest boss for last, since Crashman is normally weak to this thing. He also takes a metric ton of damage from it, even on easy mode, which I always found to be really bizarre. He has a Mega Man 1 level weakness to this thing, and easy mode makes it even more embarrassing, where he takes 20 damage from it, even though it's already ridiculously easy to hit him with it. Not sure why he, of all bosses, is so vulnerable to this thing. Either way, it's onto the Wily stages. The Squirms and Sniper Joes are fairly vulnerable to this thing, but it's not really until the Mecha Dragon when things get interesting, as usual. Since we're going to have to take this thing down with Air Shooter. I believe this shouldn't be that bad, considering the arc it travels in, but let's have a look. Not bad so far. You just need to wait for it to get close, I suppose. Oh, okay, of course, unless that happens. The hitbox for the Mecha Dragon is a bit higher up than you would expect, but it doesn't make dealing with this thing any less annoying. Okay, there we go, finally. Had several more runs where I ended up falling off the rightmost platform just because I kept getting hit too early. But yeah, it seems like the tornadoes are able to hit the Mecha Dragon a bit higher up than visually it looks like they should. Either way, it's on to Wily 2, which just means downhill of commentary from here, as usual. Wily 2? Never heard of it. Anyways, Pico Pico Kun is usually immune to the air shooter, so we're dealing with minimal damage here. But even so, it's not that difficult given the shotgun properties of air shooter. You can kind of combo it like you're seeing. Occasionally the damage glitch will screw you over, of course, because of the way that this was coded, but that's fine. Yeah, sometimes they'll just pass right through. Pretty damn annoying when it happens, but not a big deal. Whoa. Really need to stay in the center of the room here. Yeah, it seems like firing it a bit ahead of time so the spread has some time to activate is the best strategy. The most annoying property about air shooters having to wait for that last really slow tornado to go off screen before you can pause, which caused the death in Airman's fight, and like a bunch of other places just gives you less time to kind of react than you might think. Either way, it's on to Wily 3, biggest nothing burger. I'm not even going to pretend, we're just going to go straight to the boss. We've done so many of these runs at this point that I can play this stage natively at 200% speed with absolutely zero issue. Either way, Guts Dozer. So this guy usually doesn't care that much about air shooter. Unfortunately, we still have the same like weird glitchy behavior where the tornadoes just don't register sometimes. But if you stay like roughly here and continuously fire, you can sometimes get all three of them to hit like that. Other times they just don't work. That's okay. There you go. See ya. I really don't have too much to say about this stage beyond the usual. Tellies are vulnerable to the air shooter. You're going to be stuck waiting around here about 5 minutes for no justifiable reason unless you make use of the pause glitch. And thankfully the mechs are pretty passable. Don't even need to bother fighting the Sniper Joes, to be honest. The air shooter is quite well equipped to kill Booby Trap. I don't even think you need to move beyond the bottom floor here, to be honest. Yep, easy does it. Just get rid of that one from afar. There you go. Alright, time for the boss gauntlet. Alright, let's show off our problem bosses, because that's always a fan favorite little activity. Obviously we have Airman, public enemy number 1. Huge pain in the ass. I'm already really flubbing this, holy crap. Yeah, and of course I took contact damage because I couldn't move. I'm about to die. Let's not do that. Yeah, let's not do that. Oh, nice. Got hit by the tornado even. Yeah, this guy is such a huge pain in the ass. Keep getting hit somehow. Okay, wow, I'm really doing terrible at this. That's fine. He's the only one that is really a significant issue. Even the Wily machine, I don't think will give that many problems. And then the alien is, you know. Yeah, really the biggest problem here is that you have to be so close to Airman to use the air shooter on him, but you can't really get close to him. Unless you... There we go. Oh, didn't even get the health. Awesome. Okay, well, let's fight Crashman, I suppose. And try and get some of that health back. Okay, there we go. Now let's see. Let's beat Woodman. Oh, wrong teleporter. Bubbleman is equally as easy, though. Just gotta take it nice and easy. Yep, pretty easy. I always found it interesting that the water in this room disappears when you beat Bubbleman. I'm not sure why they did it that way, or what even causes that, to be honest. Either way, Woodman. This guy's weak to the air shooter as well, for whatever reason, so this isn't too bad. It's actually even more efficient against him than some of his other weaknesses because it dings off the shield, meaning that you can refire it immediately. Which is even funnier, to be honest. Alright, let's see Flashman with the flat terrain. Yeah, here's a better example of what I was discussing earlier in the challenge, where you can kind of hit him twice. He'll like lunge forward into the second tornado, which is kind of funny. Him being on flat ground makes this a lot easier, generally speaking. Get back here. You're liable to still get hit a few times, but that's not a big deal. Alright, Metalman. We'll do our little back and forth strat, I think. Alright, come on. Yeah, this works a lot better. Very satisfying to be able to get a double hit on him once in a while. Alright, nice. And then Quickman. And then we'll wrap up with Heatman. Oh, nice. All three of those tornadoes hit. That's very satisfying. Always a pleasant challenge when Quickman doesn't give you much issue. And Heatman, of course. The most engaging possible fight. Very entertaining. Aren't you just riveted by this? Let's talk a little bit about the challenge in retrospect, I guess, while this goes on. This one wasn't too difficult overall. Really, the most annoying spots, again, are like Airman as usual, always giving a hard time to hit with almost any weapon, just because he keeps pushing you away. Other than that, the stages were fairly simple. Really not too many obstacles, despite air shooters' like kind of weird arcing properties, and the shotgun aspect of it, the multi-hit, definitely helps in many cases. Actually, the Wily machine is probably another good example of that, where you can get a lot of hits really fast. Unless, you know, we get glitchy behavior, in which case we're going to be screwed over. Yeah, that's really satisfying. To just get 3 hits all in a row like that. Fun weapon once you unlock the possibilities of it and aren't spending 2 ammo per cast. Yeah, there we go. Very satisfying. Alright, let's move on to the alien and wrap this up proper. Alright, alien with air shooter. Honestly, this thing should have probably been the weakness. It's pretty well equipped to hit the alien, given how high it flies up. But we don't live in that world, so yeah. Of course, you still get a bit of glitchiness, but overall, this is a pretty great weapon to be trying to deal with it. There you go. And that's Mega Man 2 with only the air shooter. Like I started talking about in the previous stage, this one was fairly simple overall, not too bad. Problem spots are mostly like Airman as a boss. A couple of stages like Metalman stage where the Pyro bots and the blockies force you to take a shit ton of damage and you have to be like a little strategic. Woodman stage where you can damage almost nothing with the air shooter and just have to kind of tank and farm health off of the PPs and kind of dodge. So those parts were pretty fun, honestly, to see which things you'd have to avoid. Bubbleman stage as well, actually. A lot of the enemies are immune, but the shrimp and the mini frogs don't do that much damage, so you can kind of get away with tanking damage. Either way, I know the comments will be filled with time stopper only jokes, but I'm not sure about the feasibility of that. I've discussed this in the comments section, but to give a little voiceover, basically all that would amount to is like a pacifist run almost, because once you start using it, you can't stop. And I believe it stops the boss intro from playing, so it just wouldn't work unless we just kind of tried to do nothing until the boss room, which maybe is conceptually sort of interesting, but then you get to the bosses and it's like Pico Pico Kun would be an issue because the secondary blocks wouldn't be able to spawn if Time Stopper was active, and there's no way to stop it, so Not sure about that. But we'll see what challenge kind of pops into my brain next time. We'll see which other title I decide to tackle. I've looked into the feasibility of like Mega Man 9, 10 in addition to 1 through 6. And there are like infinite weapon codes and like properties that might make those games feasible, but we can talk about that at a later time. For now, I'd just like to thank you for watching. This is Zeno, signing off. Until next time. Bye-bye.